In the polished world of high finance, a chance encounter at a luxury restaurant becomes a crucible of past and present. A millionaire, basking in his new life, comes face to face with his pregnant, black ex-wife, a woman he callously discarded because she didn't fit. This is a story of public humiliation and quiet revenge, where a man's carefully constructed reality shatters under the weight of his own prejudice, and a woman finds her true power not in wealth, but in her unwavering dignity. A millionaire walks into a restaurant and freezes when he sees his black ex-wife, pregnant, waiting tables. The plate slipped from Zoe's trembling hands when she saw who was at table 17. 3 years, 3 long years since he had kicked her out of the house with a suitcase and $1,000, saying that they weren't right for each other and that she didn't fit into his world. And now Marcus Wells was there at Bella Vista, the most expensive restaurant in town, showing off his designer suit and a watch that cost more than a popular car. Next to him, a stunning blonde laughed too loudly, clearly impressed by the absurdly priced menu. Zoe Evans was only 28, but she felt like she had aged a decade since the divorce. Her 7-month belly weighed heavily on her back as she tried to keep her balance, holding the tray tightly so as not to drop it again. "Waitress," Marcus called, snapping his fingers as he always did. "We've been waiting for 5 minutes." He hadn't even looked at her yet. Zoe took a deep breath, adjusted her uniform, which was tight because of her pregnancy, and approached the table. When Marcus looked up from the menu, the world literally stopped. His face drained of color. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. His eyes darted quickly to her belly, her waitress uniform, the name tag with her name on it. "Good evening," Zoe said in the firmest voice she could muster. "Can I take your order?" Marcus's girlfriend, one of those artificial models he always preferred, looked confused between them. "Do you know her, honey?" Marcus still couldn't speak. Zoe saw the exact moment when shock gave way to embarrassment, then to barely concealed anger, as if her presence there was a personal insult to his perfect new life. "She's an old acquaintance," he finally muttered, unable to look her in the eye. An old acquaintance, Zoe almost laughed at the description. 5 years of marriage reduced to old acquaintance. She remembered when he used to take her to the same restaurant to celebrate closed deals, when he called her my queen and said she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Of course, that was before she no longer fit into his world. Before he decided that a black wife didn't fit into his new elite social circles. "Whose baby is that?" The question came out of Marcus's mouth before he could control himself. Zoe felt the familiar stab in her chest. Even after 3 years, he could still hurt her with a simple question. "That's none of your business, Marcus." His girlfriend frowned. "What do you mean, Marcus? Who is this woman?" Marcus's embarrassment was visible. His new doll didn't know he had been married. He probably told everyone she was single, available, with no complicated past. No black ex-wife working as a waitress. "Have you two decided what you want?" Zoe insisted, trying to maintain her professional dignity. But Marcus wasn't paying attention to the menu. His eyes were fixed on her belly, mentally calculating. "How many months?" he asked quietly. 7. Zoe saw when he did the math. 7 months meant she had gotten pregnant 4 months after the divorce. She also saw the relief on his face when he realized the baby wasn't his problem. "My God, Marcus," his girlfriend whispered, finally understanding the situation. "Does your ex-wife work here?" Ex-wife. The word echoed through the elegant restaurant like a bomb. Some customers at nearby tables began to pay attention to the conversation, whispering among themselves. Zoe kept her posture straight. Even though she felt the weight of curious glances, she had learned to be strong over the past 3 years. She had had to learn. "I'll get another waiter to take your order," she said, turning away. "Wait." Marcus stood up so quickly that he knocked over his wine glass. "Zoe, wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. She could feel all eyes in the restaurant on them. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I need to talk to you." 5 minutes. "We have nothing to talk about." Zoe kept her tone professional but firm. You made that very clear 3 years ago. Marcus remembered the words he had said during their last argument. Cruel words about her not being classy enough to keep up with his professional growth. About how important clients looked at him differently when he showed up with a black wife at social events. His blonde girlfriend was visibly uncomfortable. Marcus, let's go. This is embarrassing. But he kept looking at Zoe. There was something about the way she carried herself, an unshakable dignity even in this humiliating situation, that bothered him, as if she knew something he didn't. How did you end up here? He asked, genuinely confused. During their marriage, Zoe had always been intelligent, with a degree in business administration, helping him with his company, even without an official position. Zoe finally turned around. His eyes met hers, and Marcus saw a strength he didn't remember seeing before. Life teaches you a lot when you lose everything in an instant. There was something in her tone, an almost dangerous calmness that made Marcus feel uneasy, as if she had spent these 3 years not just surviving, but preparing something. Zoe, Your order, sir, she interrupted, the tablet in her hand like a professional shield. Marcus was speechless. The woman in front of him was no longer the submissive wife he had sent away. There was a new strength there, something that made him feel small despite all his ostentatious wealth. As everyone in the restaurant watched the awkward scene, none of them could have imagined that this chance encounter was not chance at all. In the days following the encounter at the restaurant, Marcus couldn't get Zoe out of his head. There was something about the way she had looked at him, a disturbing calmness that bothered him deeply. For 3 years, he had convinced himself that she was suffering somewhere, regretting having lost the comfortable life he had provided her. But the woman who had served his table didn't seem broken. She seemed prepared. Are you sure you don't know anyone else who works at that restaurant? Victoria asked for the 10th time that week, clearly bothered by Marcus's distant behavior. I don't know anyone, he lied, fidgeting nervously with his cell phone. What Marcus didn't know was that Zoe had spent the last 6 months meticulously studying every aspect of his life. She knew he had dinner at Bella Vista every Tuesday and Friday. She knew he always asked for the same table with a view of the city. She knew he took different women there every month, always blondes, always models or influencers. More importantly, she knew that he had lied to all of them about never having been married. How was work today? Dr. Leo Davies asked when Zoe arrived at his small office on the outskirts of the city. Leo was a lawyer specializing in labor rights. But more importantly, he was the only man who had never been ashamed to be seen with her. Productive, Zoe replied, placing a folder on the table. I got more photos. Leo opened the folder and whistled softly. Inside were printouts of WhatsApp conversations, social media screenshots, bank statements, and discrete photographs. For months, Zoe had systematically documented Marcus's life. My God, Zoe, you have photos of him with 7 different women in the last 3 months. 8, she corrected. You haven't seen the brunette from last week. Leo was the father of Zoe's unborn child. They had met at a support group for victims of domestic violence. He is a volunteer lawyer. She is someone trying to understand whether what Marcus had done during their marriage constituted psychological abuse. The answer had been a devastating yes. Are you sure you want to do this? Leo asked, holding her hand. We can just move on with our lives. Get married, raise our daughter, be happy. Zoe looked down at her belly. I don't want our daughter to grow up in a world where men like Marcus destroy women and get away with it. I don't want her to think it's normal to be discarded when you're no longer useful. Zoe's plan was simple in concept but brilliant in execution. Marcus had built his new image as a successful businessman based on lies. To conservative clients, he was the confirmed bachelor who had dedicated his life to business. To young women, he was the man with no complicated past, available and reliable. That whole facade would crumble if the truth came out publicly. The messages you got from his ex-secretary are pure gold, Leo said, leafing through the documents. She really kept everything. Sarah has always been very thorough and she never liked how he treated me, Zoe smiled for the first time in days. 3 years of conversations where he complains about his black ex-wife who was ruining his image. The messages were devastating. Marcus instructing Sarah to make up excuses for not taking Zoe to important events, complaining that clients frown when they saw her, planning the divorce because interracial marriage is not compatible with business growth. All documented, dated, undeniable. And the plan to expose all this? Zoe took a deep breath. His company is closing the biggest deal in its history next week. The celebration will be at the most expensive hotel in town with all the important clients in attendance. He'll be there with Victoria, introducing her as the woman of his life. And I'll be there, too. Leo frowned. How? The same way I got the job at the restaurant. I got a job as a waitress at the event. Zoe smiled in a way Leo had never seen before. Imagine his face when he sees me serving drinks to the same rich clients he told you he was never married to. The plan was more elaborate than that. Zoe had created social media profiles with all the evidence organized chronologically. She had prepared a complete dossier on Marcus's lies. More importantly, she had identified exactly which of his clients were the most conservative and traditional, the ones who valued moral character in business partners the most. Zoe, this is very risky. What if he tries to hurt you? How? She asked calmly. By calling the police because the ex-wife he hid for 3 years showed up at her workplace? By publicly admitting that he lied to everyone about never having been married? Leo realized that she had thought of everything, every angle, every possible reaction from Marcus, every consequence. During her marriage, when Marcus made her feel small and inadequate, Zoe had developed the habit of observing, recording, and remembering every detail. At the time, it was a survival mechanism to understand what she had done wrong. Now, it was her most powerful weapon. There's one more thing, she said, pulling an envelope from her purse. I found out why he really asked for a divorce. Leo opened the envelope and found copies of emails between Marcus and an important client dated a month before the divorce. I prefer to work with business people who share our traditional family values, Leo read aloud. Interracial marriage demonstrates a lack of judgment that concerns me and business partners. $28 million in contracts, Zoe added. That's how much he calculated I was worth. The answer was that I wasn't worth half that. Leo closed the envelope, impressed by the coldness with which she could talk about her own humiliation. Now what? Now he'll find out how much it costs to lie about who you are. Zoe stood up, adjusting her dress over her belly. And he'll find out that the woman he considered disposable has learned a lot about justice in the last 3 years. As she walked home that night, Zoe felt the baby kick hard, as if she too was anxious about what was to come. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "Calm down, princess. Mommy and Daddy are going to give you a world where no one has to be ashamed of who they love." What Marcus and everyone else didn't understand was that publicly humiliating someone doesn't just destroy their self-esteem. It also teaches valuable lessons about power, strategy, and patience. Zoe had been the best student they could have had. And now it was time to graduate. For a moment, when she accepted the divorce without a fight, everyone thought they would witness just another woman knowing her place, another different person quietly disappearing from the lives of those who mattered. Under the weight of all those past humiliations, her hands had trembled as she signed the divorce papers. But anyone watching closely would have noticed that it wasn't fear that made those hands tremble. It was the contained power of someone who was about to rewrite not only her own story, but that of everyone who dared to underestimate what a determined woman can do when she finally decides it's time to settle every outstanding account. The party celebrating the biggest contract of Marcus's career was in full swing. The ballroom of the Continental Hotel was buzzing with important businessmen, all toasting the $28 million in deals that had been closed. Marcus circulated proudly with Victoria on his arm, introducing her as the woman of my life to every important client. I've never been married, he repeated to the third investor of the night. Always focused on business. Now that I found Victoria, maybe it's time to think about a family. Across the room, Zoe served champagne with her 8-month belly hidden under her waitress uniform. No one paid enough attention to recognize her. she was just another invisible employee serving the elite, until Marcus turned and saw her. The champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. "What are you doing here?" he whispered, pale as a ghost. "Working?" Zoe replied calmly, offering drinks to nearby guests. "Champagne, gentlemen." Victoria noticed her boyfriend's panic. "Marcus, what's going on? Is it that woman again?" But Marcus couldn't answer. His eyes scanned the room, noticing for the first time that several waiters were discreetly distributing something to the guests. They weren't canapes. They were envelopes. "What the hell is this?" He snatched an envelope from the hands of a confused customer. Inside was a photo of him and Zoe on their wedding day, followed by printouts of conversations with Sarah about how to get rid of his black wife in order to advance his career. The messages were devastating, dated, and undeniable. "My God," murmured Mr. Peterson, the main investor. "Marcus, you were married to her." The entire room began to open the envelopes. Indignant murmurs echoed as the guests discovered years of systematically organized lies. Photos of Marcus with 8 different women in 6 months. Emails where he calculated how much an inappropriate wife would cost his image. Marcus Wells. Zoe's voice cut through the tense silence. "Would you like me to introduce you to my wife?" She had climbed onto a chair, her belly evident, holding a microphone. All eyes in the room turned to her. "Sorry, ex-wife," she corrected with a cold smile. The woman he discarded when he decided that a black wife didn't go with business success. Marcus tried to reach her, but Victoria held him back by the arm. "You lied to me," she shouted. "You said you were never married." "He lied to all of you," Zoe continued, her voice echoing through the silent hall. "Because the truth was inconvenient. The truth was that he chose $28 million in contracts over the woman he loved." The investors looked between the documents and Marcus with expressions of growing disgust. Mr. Peterson, known for his traditional family values, demonstratively tore up the contract he had just signed. "Men who lie about their own history," he said loudly, "are not reliable partners for us." One by one, the clients began to withdraw. Contracts were canceled. Handshakes were denied. Marcus watched his professional life crumble in real time. "Zoe, stop this," he begged, finally managing to get close to her. "Please stop." "Stop what?" "The truth?" She got down from the chair with Leo's help, who had appeared discreetly. "You said I didn't fit into your world, Marcus. So, I created my own." Leo placed the wedding ring on Zoe's finger and kissed her tenderly. "And now our daughter will grow up in a world where no one needs to be ashamed of who they love." The last image Marcus had was of Zoe leaving the empty hall, head held high alongside the man who loved her publicly, carrying the child he had rejected. Victoria had disappeared in the chaos, probably already looking for the next single millionaire. The waiters collected the empty envelopes and broken glasses. In 2 hours, Marcus had lost his girlfriend, all his contracts, and the reputation he had spent years building. In the parking lot, Zoe placed her hand on her belly when the baby kicked hard. "Calm down, princess," she whispered. "Mommy and Daddy just gave you a world where you'll never have to choose between love and success." But what even she didn't realize was that this night of justice was only the beginning of a much bigger transformation. Not just in her life, but in the lives of everyone who witnessed how an underestimated woman can rewrite the rules of the game when she finally decides it's time to collect every humiliation she suffered with compound interest to regain her dignity. 6 months later, Zoe held Sophie in her arms as she watched Leo sign the papers for the new legal consulting firm they had opened together. Evans & Davies, specialized labor law firm, was growing rapidly, serving mainly victims of discrimination. 3 more cases this week, Leo announced, smiling. "It seems that your story has inspired many people to report injustices." Marcus's public exposure had gone viral on social media. The video of the party, where Zoe systematically exposed his lies, had racked up millions of views. Businessmen began to avoid him, considering him untrustworthy for serious business. "Did you hear that he's living in a rented apartment?" Leo commented, looking at a news story on his cell phone. He lost his penthouse, his imported car. Even Victoria left him. Zoe rocked Sophie gently. I don't feel sorry for him. He chose the 28 million over true love. Marcus now worked as a salesman at a used car dealership, far from the social circles he used to frequent. His former elite friends avoided any association with a man who had publicly lied about his own history. Mommy, Sophie babbled for the first time, making Zoe cry with joy. She'll grow up in a world where she'll never have to choose between love and success, Zoe whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. On her desk, stacks of contracts awaited her signature. The firm was thriving by defending people like her, discarded because of prejudice, but determined to prove their worth. Each case won was another victory against a system that tried to define people's worth by the color of their skin or their social background. Marcus had tried to destroy Zoe to protect his image, but he ended up destroying himself. She learned that true revenge is not to repay the harm done to you. It is to achieve the success that your enemies could never imagine. A year ago, she was just a pregnant ex-wife waiting tables. Today, sitting in this prosperous office with her daughter on her lap and the man who loved her by her side, she realized that the humiliation had been the best gift Marcus could have given her. The story of Zoe Evans is a powerful testament to the idea that true justice is not about revenge, but about an unwavering commitment to truth and integrity. By refusing to stoop to her oppressor's level, she demonstrated that a person's dignity and character are the only things that cannot be taken away. This narrative reminds us that prejudice is a self-inflicted wound, and that the best response to injustice is not anger, but a quiet, purposeful excellence that forces the world to see the full measure of your worth. The simple waitress proved to be the most powerful woman in the room, showing that the only true defeat is to let others define you.